Good evening and welcome, and calling to order this regular meeting of the Round Lake Area School District 116 Board of Education on February 28th, 2022 at 7:09 p.m. If I could, can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. De Vera?
Here.
Mrs. McGinley?
Here.
Mr. Francisco?
Here.
Miss Lee?
Here.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mrs. Klingler?
Here.
All right, we have a roll call, and next up is Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and if I could just ask to make sure we turn cell phones to silent, and board members, please make sure your cell phones are completely off the tables. And if I can, let's move to get an approval of the meeting agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Any questions? With hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
And we have an approved agenda, and first up on it is why everybody is here, all the great things that we're going to be talking about. First on the list is the January Athletes of the Month, and I believe it's Miss Moran.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, and we did bring a crowd from athletics tonight. So thank you for your time as we celebrate all the great things that have been going on in athletics. Up first, we'd like to bring to the podium Coach Russ LaChance to introduce our Female Athlete of the Month for January.
Good evening. Oh, wow, that was loud, wasn't it? Holy cow. Here, maybe I'll stand back here. Well, it's always a pleasure to come back and see everybody. This is terrific for the bowling team. I'm so excited to actually announce our Athlete of the Month. This month is Ariana Ortega Hernandez, if you'd come on up. Oh, you're right behind me. There you go. Just a few things about Ari. She's been on the team for 4 years. When she first came on the team, she grabbed this little pink, orange, kind of ugly 6-pound bowling ball and really, was just deer in headlights, her and her friend. And you know what? She's very coachable. Slowly came up sophomore year. I don't know if anybody remembers sophomore year. She was Athlete of the Month then. She's continued working her way up the ladder, and is, the way I look at things, this season was a rough one for her. She battled tendonitis with her ankle. Then she got COVID. Then we all got COVID. So the bowling team had it a little rough for a little while. And the following week, we have the NLCC tournament, and Ari decides to average a 203 and win it. That's a huge accomplishment. I mean, that is just such a neat thing, starting from, kind of at the ground and then work her way up. And just, she's such a pleasure. She's very coachable. She's just been a wonderful person, an addition for our team. She's been fantastic in terms of, showing what Round Lake is all about when we bowl other schools. She's just got a great attitude. Unfortunately, she missed sectionals by 30 pins. So she was close, and I know that, it's still a thorn in her side. She'll probably never forget that, just like none of us would. But you know what? We were all still so proud of her for doing just that accomplishment also. I've just had such a pleasure coaching her, And the cool thing is that she is planning on bowling in college. She hasn't. She's got fingers crossed for Elmhurst, and they have quite the bowling team. So we're hoping, and we've already met her coach, the Elmhurst coach, and yeah, there would be money involved. So, but there's actually two other coaches that from colleges that approached us at sectionals that said, you know, hey, if she's going to bowl, we're going to give her money. So she's kind of wanted. I think that's fantastic. From, you know, like I said, just blossoming into what I find is a fine athlete. So I'm just so excited that she won Athlete of the Month for this month. And I'd like to thank all of you for every opportunity that you give us to come out here. And, you know, my goal is to always have one of my bowlers come here. So I guess we're going to continue. I'll see you next year.
And next up to present our male athlete of the month, Coach Ken Files.
Yes, this is just like ninth hour, so I'm always following Russ up to the podium. I'd like to introduce our male athlete of the month, Alejandro Cordova. This guy has just done a phenomenal job this entire year. He started the year out at 120 pounds earlier this year. Did okay, placed fourth at the Conant tournament at the beginning of the year, fourth at the Prospect. But then when he got down to where he should be, where he feels he should be at his weight class at 113, he really took off. He placed seventh at the El Dvorak tournament, which is the hardest tournament in the state of Illinois, back in late December. And then he went to the 40-team mid-states and took fourth there, also at 113 pounds. Now, in the month of January, because he's the male athlete of the month for January, he went 12-1. He took second at the Lake County tournament. His only loss was to the kid who took fifth in the state from Mundelein, and that was by a point. And then he was also undefeated in conference duels, knocked off 3 state qualifiers along the way, and was 12-1 for that month. So since then, where's Alejandro? Get up here. Since then, or since that time period, he went on, he took second at the IHSA regionals, took fourth at the IHSA sectionals, which qualified him for the IHSA state tournament this year at 113 pounds. And again, he's only a sophomore, so we're hoping he takes a couple more return trips down to Champaign. So I just wanted to say, great job, Alejandro. We look forward to 2 more years of this.
And up next in your agenda is our conference championship girls basketball team that we'd like to recognize this evening. I won't steal all of Molly's thunder, but this team went 28-4 this season. Had some really great games. I'm going to let Molly talk a little bit more about them, but record setting for this team. I'm really proud of the work that they put in. This year, coming out of COVID, it's been really tough for some of our team sports, not just here, but at other schools as well. And to see the work that they do, and the reason that this team is successful is because they play for each other. If you were able to watch them play at all this year, you can see that the teamwork that they have, the camaraderie, the leadership on the floor is what has made them successful this year. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Coach Molly Hennig.
So first of all, we just want to thank all of the board members who came to a million of our games, and we appreciated your support. Also, Dr. Mendoza, you weren't the curse this year when you came to the game. We still won when you came. So thank you. And then Mr. Berry and Mrs. Moran for all of their support throughout the year too. Just meant a lot to the girls just to have you guys there at the stands, and also just taking the pictures. It will provide them with great memories throughout the rest of their lives. I want to first thank Coach Robinson, who had a newborn baby in December. He took about 4 days off, I think, and then he came back, which I think just speaks volumes of how much he cares about this program and the girls and just how special this season was. We also had 3 players who recently found out won all-conference. So Amari Cole, Lily Burton, both won and made the all-conference team, which was something special that helped us in our big run, but also Taylor Major was player of the year. So just some extra special things that happened within the season from those girls. But just the journey that they've gone through. I know Mrs. Moran talked about COVID and, you know, some of those things that happened. But looking back on our seniors, so Taylor and Amari, their sophomore year didn't start out really great. Not how they wanted after our freshman year. And I remember sitting in a room with them and saying, like, hey, why do you guys play at Round Lake? Like, you guys could play anywhere. Like, you would start for most other varsity programs in the area. And they both said, we want to win at Round Lake. And it was both of them talking about that and how important it was to them. And it took a little longer than we wanted just because of COVID and all that stuff. But they never gave up on that dream. And I think they both propelled us to have the season that we had. And they just kept fighting for it. And the first time we lost to Wakanda, they both were so angry. And we should not have lost that game. It was 42-40. And we lost as our 6th game of the season. And I think that just reminded them of that feeling. And then they led the rest of the team just and from that moment on in terms of wanting to win every single game. And they pretty much did from then on. And then another game that just stands out that I think is worth mentioning is our Grays Lake Central game, which we had a lot of people at. It was 29-28, which was one of our lowest scoring games of the whole year. We were down by 11, I think, 11. Maury was on the bench because she had a million fouls like every game. And this team just, again, rallied around each other, played unselfishly, wanted to come out and play for each other, whether they were on the floor for 30 seconds, whether they had to play the whole game like Lily and Taylor and Judy. And they really just cared about winning for each other and winning for Round Lake and winning for the program. And I think that as we look back on this year, I mean, the seniors, what you guys did, and just thinking back from where you were as sophomores in that room, saying those things to where you guys got us this year speaks volumes. But it's also really exciting knowing that we have 2 seniors up here, and 2 big seniors in 2 big parts of our program, but we also have a lot of these girls coming back next year, which is awesome too. So seniors, you started the journey, but it's up to the underclassmen to keep it going. So.
Thank you.
Sorry if we might also take a few moments as the parents of the girls to personally thank the coaches for their time, their dedication, their love, their support, their toughness when needed, bringing the girls together to have one extraordinary series and conference this year. So thank you very much. Oh, all right. So to commemorate that, the parents have gotten together and we got you both a great gift to mark the season so you can remember the girls and all of the hard work that they did to get to where they are today. So if we could present both the coaches. Also, we were not in the stands alone this season or any of the other 3 seasons being the mother of a senior by ourselves rooting for the girls. So we recognize the board members that were at every game cheering the girls on, hollering at the refs with us, thank you very much, and just really supporting the district and our community. So thank you very much. And we also got something for you to remember this record-breaking and memorable season. So we'd like to present them to you as well.
All right, and our last group that we want to recognize tonight through athletics are our state qualifying wrestlers. We had 4 this year, 2 for the boys tournament and 2 for the girls. So if Aiden McCain, Alejandra Cordova, Ireland McCain, and Vianney Hernandez can please come up here, that would be great. And then Coach Filas, please.
I must say this was a really great year for Panther Wrestling overall. I did talk a lot about Alejandro because he was, male athlete of the month for January. I do want to say at the sectionals though, when the kid from Hershey pinned himself, so Alejandro qualified, that was an unbelievable match. Went down to the wire. I think it was 4-3, and the kid from Hershey ends up pinning himself, trying to pin Alejandro. He was so frantic. But it was a fantastic match. It was a shame it had to end like that, but we ended up as victors in that. So the next state qualifier I want to talk about is Aiden McCain. Aiden, when he won in the semifinals at the sectionals, he broke a 6-year streak of no state qualifiers for this high school. And he did it in dramatic fashion. He actually, I believe, broke the pin record with that fall in the semis against his opponent from Huntley, who was actually rated ahead of him in the state. And then he went on. He actually had to wrestle the state champ 4 times this year, and it was like every weekend we wrestle the same guy, and it's just the same result. But regardless, he goes out, he goes to the state tournament, and he does what the Panther wrestler hasn't done in 26 years, which is find his way onto the podium. And for that 5th place match, he knocks off a guy that beat him out at the Dvorak, pins him for his 30th pin of the year, which, of course, he now was going to supplant Dylan Busan up on the leaderboard up in the gym. So it was fantastic. He ends his senior year with a 39-13 record. And I tell you what's most impressive about this is the fact that last year, let's be honest, it was a very strange year for everything, for wrestling in particular. Aiden was 6-8 last year. And he goes from 6-8 to 39-13 and a spot on the podium at the state tournament. And that just goes to show you what hard work and dedication can do for anybody. So it's a fantastic story, and he did a fantastic job this year. Great job. The next next state qualifier I'd like to talk about is Vianney Hernandez. What's interesting, someone pointed out we actually have a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior state qualifiers. Vianney is our junior 105-pounder. She qualified for the state tournament moments before Ireland did at the sectional. She finished up with, I believe, a 9-6 record. Many of these matches too were against male competitors, and that's probably one of the big things that we need to have as an accolade here. Is this was the first year of IHSA girls wrestling. And to be honest, there was not much of a schedule. Really, no one knew what to do with this. So there were very few tournaments, very few places to send these young ladies. But they shined when the time was right. And she went downstate and she wrestled 2 very competitive matches and did a great job. And she's a junior, so we're hoping, and I think she expects to be back there next year in Bloomington and get her way onto the award stand. Great job, Vianney. And lastly, Ireland McCain. Yes, it was a big wrestling season for the McCain family. Absolutely. Just a little bit after Vianney won by fall in her sectional semifinals, Ireland did the same thing. So she punched her ticket. She was the second girls qualifier. And she had a really nice run, too, on the first day of the state tournament. She had one of those moments in the quarters. I'm watching, and she's up 3-0, and she gets turned. And the ref's waving, and I'm getting really nervous. But she fought off her back, and she ended up reversing the other girl to her back and ended up winning that match to put her in the semifinals, which made her all-state. And that was such a fantastic finish, and she showed great heart and determination there. I think she lost to the eventual champ in the semis, and then wound up wrestling back for 5th, and where she wrestled the same girl from Morton who she beat in the quarters. And this time she pinned her in about 40 seconds, I say. About 40 seconds? Look, minute 21? It was fast, that's all I know. She locked up a cradle and it was over. But there too, that was huge. And for the inaugural year, we've never had this before. Getting 2 young ladies downstate, I think we sent 5 to the sectionals. And getting a place winner, I think that's big, and that's going to be huge for our women's program moving forward. So Ireland, great job getting on the podium. You matched your brother. Good job.
And I'd just like to say thank you for allowing us this time to recognize our wonderful winter athletes. We had a really great season, so thank you guys for your support and for the time to allow us to recognize them tonight. Thank you.
All right, next up, it looks like we've got the Exchange Club Youth of the Month, and I believe that is Mr. Berry.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Mendoza. What a fantastic night. I think I've been smiling all of February. It's almost a shame to flip the calendar to March tomorrow. Just a fantastic year for our student athletes. We've been smiling, we've been having parades, and teachers say we can get used to this. Yeah, well, we can. Let's have a lot of parades. It's my pleasure to introduce our Youth of the Month, Gisela Uribe. As I always introduce the Youth of the Month, we always kind of look at the classes that they take and the accomplishments. Gisela is in line with everybody who stands up here, is taking the most rigorous classes that we could ever offer and excelling in all of them. I think it's 4 AP classes, 2 honors classes, strength and performance, and a luncheon there. So she's pretty busy throughout the day. Also executive board on the student council, so she's involved in clubs and activities. And I just want to remind you, because she's got a fantastic speech, I heard it. I just kind of want to remind you what the theme is for the speeches this year. Reflecting on what you have learned during this time about yourself, your community, and the world, explain how your perspectives on success, empathy, prioritizing social inequities and leadership have been reshaped. And so, again, I've heard Gisela's speech, and I think you will agree with me after you hear it that the future is in good hands with human beings like Gisela. Ladies and gentlemen, Gisela Uribe.
Good evening, members of the Round Lake Board of Education. My name is Gisela Uribe, and it is a pleasure to stand before you all and receive this award. Round Lake has been where I call my home for the past 18 years. My community has helped me flourish many of the qualities I embody today. I have learned the importance of making meaningful connections with faculty, volunteering, and being an active student within and my community. Through the years, I will continue to implement these values engraved on me by my district. March 13, 2020. I could sense and hear the excitement roaming in the hallways as we were all looking forward to an extra week of spring break, unaware that it would be the last time I would see my teachers in person for the next year and a half. Growing up, success to me had meant to simply excel in my studies. However, my perspective on success changed when I learned the importance of taking care of one's needs to persevere in a time of uncertainty. While in quarantine, at the beginning of the pandemic, I endured by prioritizing my physical and mental health. In my free time, I became more creative with cooking and at-home workouts. Giving myself a distracting task to do for the evening became my sense of reward for success. While finding ways to help myself, I was eager to connect with my community. I began my search using volunteer websites and looked for virtual opportunities given the restrictions that were in place. I was able to use my strength of being bilingual as I came across a nonprofit organization named Sin Youth. The program provides weekly online English classes to kids in Latin America taught one-on-one by English-speaking high school students and college students. I connected with the program and became an English tutor. Through the program, I made a meaningful connection with a 10-year-old boy named Nico from Peru. Watching him learn English over the span of a year made me realize the impact that one can make by reaching out to other underserved communities. Nico was very aware of what was happening around in the world. At the end of every class, he would end the class with, "Adiós, miss, gracias por la clase y cuídese mucho." Bye, miss, thank you for the class, and take good care of yourself. I became aware of how appreciative he was of these classes and evolved my empathy. He was appreciative of learning English online despite the difficulties that came with learning online. This was an eye-opening experience and made me realize the socioeconomic disadvantages that other kids around the world are faced with. I learned about the social inequalities that exist in Peru. Their vaccination distribution was low in comparison to the United States. When it was my turn to receive the vaccine, Nico shared that in Peru they were still in the third age of vaccines. Young kids were still unable to get it. I now recognize the disparities in their country. Additionally, last spring, Brown Lake and many other United States districts offer the hybrid learning model. Yet in Peru, students were still fully remote. I was aware of the class differences and noticed how small local businesses were impacted and had to shut down when big companies like Amazon kept their businesses open. Unfortunately, essential workers, fast food, factories, and store employees had their hours cut, whereas college-educated workers had the privilege to contribute to their community from home. Another inequality is that many people do not have sick pay despite being frontline workers. Throughout my journey, I learned the importance of following a routine. Junior year was completely remote for me, while taking AP Spanish, AP Psychology, AP US History, Physics Honors, Math Honors, and English Honors. I have always had a good work ethic. However, even a good work ethic can't replace the collaboration of other classmates. I did not let the additional difficulties get in the way of performing well in the courses. I advocated for myself and sought additional tutoring to receive help. Outside of class, I was involved in the National Honor Society and Student Council. I followed my routine of allocating time for different aspects of my life. During the pandemic, I grew my leadership and advocacy skills. In hopes of pursuing a higher education, I connected with my college and career counselor, Mr. Bruno, the summer before my senior year. As a prospective first-generation college student, I overcame many obstacles and implemented my strengths throughout the application process. I have been accepted into 8 private liberal art four-year institutions, including Lawrence, Beloit, Lake Forest, and Kalamazoo. In addition, my hard work has paid off as I was offered full to half tuition at every school. I am the Vice President of Student Council, an active member of the National Honor Society, a Panther Coup leader, a student liaison, a college ambassador, and a peer mentor. Through the challenges of the pandemic, I have learned that I am capable of persevering through new boundaries that that are unfamiliar with the help of my community.
All right, perfect. And as everybody exits the building and leaves us to the mundane, we will now move on to communications to the board. And the first up, to really keep the excitement going, is the debt profile review.
It's exciting for some of us. I find it exciting.
And that is all we needed to hear.
We might do a little group chat or sing. Look out. All right. So, good evening, board. I am here in great company with, I would say, one of our finest partners from PMA, Tammy Beckworth Shelmo. She is the Senior Vice President, Managing Director of PMA Securities. We've had a long partnership with them in this district, and throughout my career, I've had a long partnership with PMA. So, they have been a great partnership to us, not only on just in information, but also the execution of things that we should be doing. The first couple of slides should be familiar to you. This is information, is a refresh on where we are with our debt profile. And so as we look at our bond, we have two types. One is non-referendum. The second is a referendum bond. Our non-referendum bonds are identified as 2015B, 2016A, and 2016B. Also, our referendums are 2014 and 2015A. I've highlighted the respective 2015B and 2015A bonds because those are the bonds we're really going to be looking at and talking a little bit further about potential refinancing or refunding opportunities to save the taxpayer and the district some additional funds. As we look at our non-referendum bonds, the 2015 bond has a payoff as of our January statement of $1,665,000 that will mature or be paid in full in fiscal 26. As we look at our referendum bond 2015A, that will mature in 2013 for a full payment, and that current amount as of our January bond payment is $34,795,000. As we look at our overall debt roll-off, meaning when we'll be debt-free, when we've paid off our house, when we've paid off our car, to be analogous to our home finances, our referendum bonds will be completed in fiscal year 2030. We are currently in fiscal year 22. Ord levy year 2028. Remember, there's a little bit of an arrears between the difference of our levy year to our fiscal year. Our non-referendum bonds will be paid off in fiscal year 2031 or levy year 2029. Just a little bit of the refunding opportunity. At the December Board of Education meeting, I had asked you to review an agreement with PMA so we could start to execute and have these conversations. You were very supportive of my recommendation and approved that agreement at the January 24th meeting. With our conversations today, there is no cost for us to have these conversations or to pursue opportunities. Those fees and those costs would be if we actually executed looking at refinancing or refunding our bonds. So when we talk about what the timeline is, 2015A bond, the call date is January 15, 2023. And as a reminder, that is the first time when we would be able to refund or refinance those bonds on a tax-exempt basis. I had shared with you in July, we could refund or refinance our bonds. See, got you up and awake. we could refinance our bonds at any time on a taxable basis, but that could incur additional cost to us, and that's where we want to watch the market and see what makes the most sense. When we look at our 2015 bond, that has a call date of January 15th, 2023 as well. We are eligible per IRS rules and regulations up to 90 days prior to that call date, looking at refinancing at a tax exempt basis, which brings us up to October. So as we look at some potential opportunities that Tammy's going to share with you, there are some opportunities afforded to us as a district that we'd like you to review and look at for further approval.
Thank you, Dr. Kibbins, and good evening, everyone. So I'm going to take this one step further, as Dr. Kibbins said, and talk to you a little bit about your options in greater detail, and then talk a little bit about the bond market, and then share a recommendation with you and a path forward. So as Dr. Kibbins already mentioned, you have options to refund bonds, which is analogous to refinancing a mortgage on your house. With a refinance of your house, you're trying to lower the monthly mortgage payment. With a bond issue for a school district, you're really trying to lower the annual debt service or principal and interest payments that you have. So there's the traditional taxable advance refunding that she mentioned, so you could do that at any time. If you want to refund the bonds from 2015A or B on a tax exempt basis, you'd have to wait until this fall. But there's a third option we're going to talk to you about in greater detail tonight, and that's called a tax exempt forward settlement refunding. So that basically means you have an opportunity to lock in an interest rate sooner on a tax exempt basis, but knowing that it can't close any sooner than this fall. And on the next slide, we'll talk about that in a little bit greater detail. So just like it sounds, we're executing a transaction on a forward basis. So hypothetically, you're locking something in maybe as soon as March or April, but you cannot close on that transaction till the fall. So the investor, the purchaser, is assuming some interest rate risk. And the way that they sort of manage that risk is by charging you a slightly higher interest rate. So managing some of that interest rate risk, as I said. It enables you, though, to take advantage of tax-exempt rates instead of taxable rates. Tax-exempt rates are inherently lower than taxable rates. One key detail as it relates to forward refundings is it's typically not an option for a school district refunding unless you're within a year of the closing date of the transaction. So knowing we can close as soon as October of this year, we're already within about that 8-month window. So it's a very appropriate time to be having this conversation. I first want to talk a little bit about the bond market. So if we look at the next slide, we've got a couple different things going on here. The gray shaded area in the back is showing you what the Fed has done with short-term interest rates. And we know we have been near zero for quite some time. The different colored lines on this chart represent rates on the Municipal Market Data Index, or the MMD for short. Think of it like the Dow Jones Industrial of the municipal bond market. I watch this every single day because I am a public finance nerd, but we care very much about what this is doing, because whether you're a school district in Lake County, Illinois, any other type of governmental issuer of debt, your bonds are going to sell relative to or to spread to what this index is doing. This goes back to 2003, and you can see peaks and valleys. There's a story behind every peak and valley in this graph. If you look on the right-hand side, you can see there's a circle, and it says COVID. That was March of 2020, lasted for about a month with extreme volatility in the bond market. In fact, we'll go to the next slide because the same data just goes back to 2 years ago. So you can see it a little differently. You see that spike in rates in March and April of 2020. By May of that year, the market really settled down, and we have been enjoying historically low rates for quite some time. Now, in the last 6 to 7 weeks, we've had some volatility, rates coming up in the tax-exempt market. Couple different reasons. One is pressures for inflation. The market anticipates the Fed's going to raise short-term interest rates. It's really more of a correction in the market, though. It's not an indication that the tax-exempt bond market is weak. One of the major variables that impacts the tax-exempt market and what the rates are is the supply. And simply put, there's not enough supply to keep up with investor demand in the tax-exempt market. So that is helping keep rates down. Keep in mind, even though rates have been coming up, we are still near historical rates, which is a lot of the reason why we're having this conversation today. There's no question that what's happening in Ukraine is influencing the bond market. So far, the bond market actually has reacted fairly favorably to it, meaning there's uncertainty, global crisis, oil prices going up. That actually has an inverse relationship. with rates in the bond market. They tend to come down because there's a flight to safety and quality. So I wanted to show you the Treasury rate market for just a quick second. Why would we do that? Well, that's because taxable bond rates price at a spread to what the Treasury market is doing. So we care very much about that market. And you can see the trend is pretty similar, not quite as drastic, but similar to what's been happening in the tax-exempt market. We have been seeing rates come up. So I'm going to show you some numbers here, just to give you an idea. If we were in the market, what do we think as of right now, what would you be able to lock in? So this is first looking at a taxable refunding. In all of these scenarios, we are not extending the final maturity on the bonds as they are now. We're staying within the same footprint. So in the yellow column on the right side, with taxable rates, as of now, if you were to do that transaction, you can see it would save about $207,000. So that's savings you pass along to taxpayers by way of lower property taxes. We always look at the calculation on a present value basis. So when I take that $207,000, the present value is about $203,000. And when I divide that by the amount of principal of bonds we're refunding of about $33.3 million, I get about 0.6%. As a general rule of thumb in the public finance industry, if that percentage is at least 2%, then it's an indication to you as a Board of Education you should at least consider this. As you can see, a taxable transaction, we're not at that threshold, so we are not recommending that the board pursue a taxable refunding at this time. And you can see in the call-out box on the right-hand side, the savings is small, as evidenced by the $200,000 figure, about $2 per year for someone with a $100,000 market value home. This is a scenario, if we were able to do the refunding on a tax-exempt basis this fall, we just wait to do the transaction until then, under current rates, what might the savings look like? Obviously, it's much better, right? Because tax-exempt rates are lower, we're also closer to the call date. You can see the total savings is just under $1.5 million. On a present value basis, it's about $1.3 million or over 4%. So we are above that 2% threshold. And the estimated savings per year for the $100,000 market value home is about $12. Finally, here's the forward refunding analysis. So again, you do the transaction now on a tax-exempt basis. The investor is going to charge you a little bit of a premium in that rate to lock it in and manage their interest rate risk, but we don't close until this fall. The total savings here is just over $1,050,000. On a present value basis, it's about $950,000, or percentage is about 2.8%. So again, above the 2%, and I would expect this to be right in the middle between the two scenarios that you've already seen. And the estimated savings for that $100,000 market value home is about $10. When we look at various refunding scenarios, we always want to think about break-even market movement. So what does that mean? And knowing that the sort of ideal scenario is the tax-exempt refunding this fall, when we look at the taxable refunding, so that's the column on the left, and there's a box shaded at the bottom in light blue, it says 85 basis points, 0.85%. So what that means is, if tax-exempt rates go up by more than 85 basis points between now and the fall of 22, you would be better off doing a taxable refunding sooner. We don't love that though, because we know the taxable savings is not robust. Similarly, the column in the middle, there's a box shaded in light green. That is saying, if tax-exempt rates go up by more than only 0.3% between now and the fall of 22, you're going to be better off executing a tax-exempt forward refunding sooner. So that's really why we're here tonight, to say 0.3% of market movement is not a whole lot, especially since in the last 7 to 8 weeks, rates have gone up by about 0.7%. We're seeing more volatility. I did want to mention on the 2015B bonds, because what we were just talking about is the 2015A bonds only. We have taken a close look at that one. That's a much smaller transaction. It's a much shorter transaction in terms of its final maturity. So generating any meaningful savings is more difficult. And in fact, the cost to do a transaction right now for that one outweighs any benefit. So we are not recommending that you pursue refunding of the 2015B bonds at this time. A couple minutes about how we would sell your bonds. So there are two ways to access investors. One is with a public offering and the other one is a placement. The district has a long history of executing public offerings, either what's called a competitive sale or a negotiated sale. In either case, you're accessing a huge market of potential investors. With a private placement, You are trying to reach out to potentially one investor, like a bank. And there are banks out there that are interested in buying municipal bonds. And your transaction kind of fits their sweet spot. And over time, sometimes placements are more beneficial than others. It has to do with the liquidity of a bank and what their sweet spot is for their investment portfolio. So we have reason to believe that based on recent developing dynamics in the market, a placement may be very beneficial to the district. But what we would like to do is sort of kick the tires on that a little bit more. So there's a couple things that we're going to ask you to consider. One is for you to approve a parameters resolution for the refunding of those 2015A bonds. And it would allow for any of the scenarios I've talked about, a taxable advance refunding, a tax-exempt current refunding, or the tax-exempt forward refunding. Cover all the bases. The parameters resolution is valid for 6 months, and it does not obligate the board to do anything, but it gives you flexibility. So as this market continues to evolve, we can hopefully execute a transaction that will generate savings for you and for taxpayers. We are also going to, with your blessing, as soon as tomorrow, send out a request for proposals to numerous underwriters who also serve as what we call placement agents in case it's a placement. We're going to ask for their feedback, ask for their proposal, what their fees would be, their approach, and what do they think? Do they think a placement's better for the district or a public offering? And ultimately, we'd bring a recommendation to the board at your second meeting in March. The first board meeting on March 14th, we'd bring the parameters resolution. The second one, we'd bring that recommendation for a firm to engage. Depending on which method of sale we proceed with, we may or may not need to update the district's credit rating, but the ultimate goal is to be in the market by late April, possibly a little bit sooner. We'll work as fast as we can, but we need to allow time to go through this process. In any case, if we can get this tax-exempt forward current refunding done, again, it won't close until the middle of October because the IRS says we can't close it any sooner than that. But we believe this approach just puts the board and the district in the best possible position, and hopefully we'll have market conditions continue to cooperate and enable you to generate savings. Anything else you wanted to add, Dr. Kippen?
So as you know, we've really strengthened our partnership with State Bank of the Lakes. We've been very diligent about keeping our dollars local. I did reach out to them as a potential investor with a placement on this. They were very excited about the opportunity, and then they gave me a call back and said based on the current market conditions, some of the larger lenders on the commercial end would probably serve us better than that they could do for an interest rate and closing of that. So we're certainly going to keep local in the mix, but they were very forthcoming saying that due to some current conditions, they may not be able to compete with some of the larger financial institutions. That concludes our sharing and communication to you.
So I was just going to add this came to the Finance Committee prior to the presentation here for the board. And I just wanted to make sure the board was aware that the adoption of the parameters on the 14th in no way solidifies our action. Should, as we know, we're in a different world today than even we were a week ago, as Timmy mentioned with Ukraine. Should anything change moving forward, and let's all hope not, but should anything change, again, this doesn't solidify the action. Should something change, we don't have to move forward.
What, if any, impact do you anticipate to our credit ratings?
If we have to pursue a credit rating with placements, you often do not have to pursue one, but if we do a public offering, I anticipate your credit rating will stay the same. A lot of positives. I mean, who would have thought that COVID would actually result in districts being in a better financial position than they were a couple of years ago, but I anticipate you'll stay where you are. So, and one other thing I also wanted to mention, when you talked about the parameters resolution, it's valid for 6 months. And when we actually execute a transaction, if we do, and hopefully we will, we have to have a couple delegates authorize the sale. So one of them has to be a board officer and the other one be an administrator. So there would be involvement continuing from the district if we were actually to execute a transaction. It wouldn't just be PMA doing it on its own.
Right, no, of course. I was just, when it comes forward on the 14th board meeting, the parameters. And the effect of the board's credit rating is going to, depending on which route we go, based on what is going to be best moving forward, whether it will we would do effect, or not effect, but whether a credit rating is involved, I should say.
Any additional questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we've got the Schuler Partnership presentation for 21-22. Thank you.
Yeah, so Board of Ed, you're aware every year I think this is the first one in person we've had in like 3 years, which is kind of nice. So it's great to see you both. So this is the annual update that Schuler provides. And Lindsay and Joanne, if you wouldn't mind, just because I think you're new for our board, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself. And then do they have the remote? So we're good. You guys are in good shape. So you're all teed up. So I'm going to pass it off to you. Thank you.
Dr. Mendoza. Hello, everyone. My name is Joanne Birch. I'm the managing director of the Schuler Scholar Program. I oversee all of our 16 partnership high schools, and we're here to just share with you some of the goals and successes that we've had here at Round Lake and how we're looking forward to our partnership in the future. Okay, so we'll go through. If you have any questions, please feel free to jump in. Colleague Lindsay here, she's the regional director for the North Region schools. So her responsibilities over 5 schools, and Round Lake is one of them. Sorry, I gotta double click here. In our agenda, we want to cover the year in review here at Round Lake. Partnership highlights, our organizational goals, so you have an understanding of what it is that we're focusing on in serving students. Our scale, so our size here at Round Lake. Scholar retention and our goals in trying to ensure that we can serve every student that we have selected. College matriculation outcomes, which is the battle there, right? College graduation and increased scholarship and support for scholars in college to ensure that they can see through, all the way through. Schuler Round Lake site goals. We have very specific goals here, things that we want to accomplish here. And the foundation's mission in continuing our support of underrepresented students on college campuses. And any questions for the group? We always like to start with an image of the students and some of the activities that are going on when we have our team of people here at Round Lake working with students, tutoring them, providing support, both personal support and academic support, working with the teachers and the counselors to ensure that communication is flowing between Schuler and students and teachers and counselors. So a few highlights, we are really happy to have had served over 170 students here at Round Lake. It's actually 182. I double checked the number this morning. So over 182 students and very much like the very impressive young students that were here earlier. We have seen graduates go to 70 different schools that we only work with highly selective private colleges. So Brown University, Carleton, Dartmouth, Occidental, Tufts, Wake Forest University, and so on. So these students have been very successful in these institutions, and this is where we continue to provide supports in helping them gain access to the top universities in the country. A little bit over what our Schuler organizational goals are. There's 4 areas that we focus on. We focus on serving as many qualified students as we can, so our scale. We are focusing on retaining as many students as we can who are on track for highly selective private colleges. Our third goal is around college attainment, to ensure that they are prepared and can gain access to and graduate from college, the highly selective schools. And in the college graduation is also equally as important. So we have a team of people who are focusing on the students that are in college. Lindsay's going to walk us through some more specific information related to Round Lake.
All right, thanks, Joanne. So we're going to zoom in a little bit on Round Lake specific data here.
The first goal that we're going to talk through is our scale goal. So as you can see, for the past 3 years, school years, we have been serving students anywhere between 50 to 60 students here at Round Lake High School. That dip you see for this current academic year is the result of us not selecting a new class of Schuler Scholars. As we continue to wrap up our partnership here at Round Lake High School, one thing that we are very committed to doing is continuing to serve those students that still are in our program, those 31 students. All right, this next slide is looking specifically at scholar retention, that goal around retaining the students in our program. So the two graphs that you guys are seeing, the first one shows year by year the percent of classes that are honors and AP that our students are taking. So you see that kind of general upward trajectory of students taking more and more honors and AP classes as they progress through high school. We'll talk a little bit about, on that second graph, what we expect of our students. We do expect our students to maintain a 3.4 unweighted cumulative GPA. And again, that's in incredibly rigorous course load. So by senior year, students are taking 4 to 5 AP classes. And you can see the general progression from last year. For the most part, our students on average are reaching that 3.4 or above. As you see, that sophomore class last year did struggle a little bit. We're going to talk about, so you guys are very familiar with the things that made last year challenging. But that was a couple students in particular, I think, who had some really big challenges last year who sort of impacted that average. All right, continuing to talk about scholar retention. So last year we saw significant withdrawals from the Schuler Scholar Program. Schuler experienced 17 student withdrawals, again, for various reasons. Like we all know, the pandemic was hard, and it affected students' mental health. It affected students' abilities to engage, to continue on in rigorous classes when they were also navigating what it felt like to be providers for their families, to be childcare support for their families. And so while we continue to support many of those students who did choose to exit our program or who had to exit as a result of academic challenges, we no longer support them formally as Schuler Scholars. The thing that I do want to highlight here is that after first semester of this year, we did withdraw 4 students. 2 were self-withdrawals, students choosing to exit the program just due to goal alignment, and 2 were as a result of academic reasons. But compared to 13 from last year, we are very happy to see that that number did decrease in terms of those students who are exiting our program. And we have to attribute so much of that to being back in person, to being back in a space where we can be collaborating with teachers and more readily be able to collaborate with families as well. All right, this is looking at college attainment from last year. So Schuler was serving 6 senior students last year, and these are the schools that they matriculated to. This year, our acceptances are still rolling in, and we'll be very excited to celebrate the class of 10 seniors that we have this year over the next couple of months. All right, this is always one of my favorite highlights. So overall, Schuler class of 2021 across all the schools that we work in, 94% of demonstrated financial need was met. So we are talking about what I always like to call free money, money that does not have to be paid back.
For Round Lake, for the class of 2021, 97% of demonstrated financial need was met. So that's just a really exciting number to see that those students are not going to be graduating with debt that kind of burdens them. All right, a couple points here about our college scholars. So you're looking at college scholars, cumulative GPA, Round Lake college scholars compared to Schuler averages. Round Lake scholars are pretty much on point with what we see across other Schuler schools. Additionally, 6-year graduation rate, we're right at that 92% marker, which is well above the national average.
Part of our goals in ensuring that students are graduating through college is making sure that we are providing additional supports. We had a small scholarship, but we've increased that scholarship in looking at increasing Schuler scholarships for DACA students and undocumented students. We know that historically, DACA and undocumented students have had difficult time trying to find the funding to stay in school. We are supporting those students by increasing their scholarship. We also increase Schuler scholarships overall to all students, going from, I think it was $1,200 a year to $2,500 a year, with some additional other supports that we provided as a result of the pandemic. One of them was to provide college-sponsored health insurance grant. Any student that didn't have access to health insurance, we wanted to make sure that wasn't a reason for them to want to leave their institution because they couldn't get the care that they needed. The other was offer Schuler Aspire grant for graduate school preparation. Any student who wants to go on to graduate school, we wanted to make sure that they had the supports and the guidance and the resources to be able to take that next step in pursuing their graduate degree.
All right, so we are shifting now to look at this school year and some of the goals that we set. Our goals, we have 3 goals. They focus on 3 different areas. The first of those is around college attainment. The second of those is around meeting academic and engagement requirements. And the last one is increasing our family engagement. So one thing that, and you guys can read through all this, but one thing I really do want to highlight that was so exciting is as we crossed the semester mark a couple weeks back, 83% of students in Schuler finished first semester with all A's and B's. Again, when I talk about the kinds of classes that these students are taking, that is such an accomplishment and something that that we were really excited to celebrate with them.
Some other areas that we're looking at is you may have heard or it may not have, but Mr. Schuler, Jack Schuler, in addition to the Schuler Scholar Program, he has also launched the Schuler Education Foundation. This is a separate arm under the foundation where we are partnering with highly selective colleges to ensure that students who we serve, first generation students of color, economically challenged, that they have the opportunities at the schools that we're working with that may not be in this the 15 or 16 schools that we're working in, that they also have the opportunity to receive a scholarship. So schools are raising the money, Mr. Schuler is matching that money, and we are ensuring that even if they're not a Schuler Scholar at one of our high schools, that they have the opportunity to continue to have the supports they need to gain access to these top liberal arts colleges. We started this education foundation, and we tested it with young alumni, bringing the alumni back and ensuring that we can do some sort of match grant. That is currently happening right now, and as I mentioned, the Access Initiative is the initiative that I just spoke about.
So board, thank you both. We appreciate it. Board, do you have any questions for either of the presenters?
I
This
did
would be
real
the
quick.
time.
You see that the average financial package, 66,000. It's a good, it's an impressive number. My question is, what's the ballpark EFC for each of these kids that go?
So because we serve students who one of our demographic criteria is that they qualify as Pell Grant eligible. And so a student whose family income is $65,000 or below, they are coming in at a 0 EFC.
And I'm going to actually follow up on that question. So, with the majority of the students that go on to the school or colleges that are part of the program, what is their family cost on average going to look like? I get the 60,000 and all of that, but what are they after their 4.5 years in college? What are they looking at as their total debt ratio?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that estimated family contribution, that EFC for, again, any family that's making 65,000 or below is going to be 0. No money whatsoever that they're going to owe after those 4 years of college. For many of our families that we serve that fall into that 65 to maybe 70, 75 range, a lot of different factors are considered. How many other students the family has in college, if the family owns businesses, things like that. And so I would say that on average, we are typically serving students whose family contribution is no more than $2,000 to $5,000 on average a year.
Any additional questions?
And does that carry the 6 years? Because I know your goal is 6 years, so that's all the way through everything. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
For your time.
All right, next up we have our instructional technology update.
Hello. Awesome. Hello, everyone. How's it going? Thank you for having me. Once again, I'm Donnie Castens, Instructional Technology Coordinator, and I am here to provide my update to you guys of the amazing things that are happening. Now, I do recognize the night's getting late, so I tried my best to contain it in an overview. But if you have any further questions or want any follow-ups, please, by all means, let me know. All right, so the first part of this is honestly just kind of going through the idea of the goals and vision of what instructional technology entails for Round Lake, all the schools in Round Lake pre-K to transition. And with that, realistically, it's just first off recognizing and celebrating the amazing things that happened during the pandemic, during the remote, during the hybrid, all the really cool and creative opportunities that staff provided for students to hopefully not skip a beat in providing a quality education to them throughout the whole process. And so we're as a team, we're focusing on that and then building off of it and capitalizing on that and helping teachers realize the amazing things they did do and carry through once they get into the classroom with the kids in person and see how much more they can actually enrich and enhance that classroom environment, within those four walls of that classroom, but also past it, using the tech they have at their disposal. And the biggest things here is obviously, as it says, are to make it interactive and equitable for all. And also with that too, bringing in all the stakeholders, parents, guardians in the community, and even community establishments like the library into the fold to make sure that we're all on the same page and that as we build up our use of instructional tech and the skills and the content of the classes, that we do it together. With this, we do follow a framework and standards from ISTE, which is the International Society for Technology and Education, that is aligned with Common Core. And so not many people realize that there is this trifecta TPAC chart that really harnesses and combines the content, the pedagogy of teaching, and also instructional tech to ensure that the kids are prepared and ready to go for when they do eventually leave the district, whether it is graduation or if they unfortunately have to leave due to moving elsewhere. At least they're ready to go to efficiently transition into the next part of their life, the next chapter. And we do this with the 4 C's of learning to really, again, help prompt creativity, collaboration, and enhance or support the skills that they're learning in the content to be successful. This slide here is just the team, and these are the 8 instructional technology specialists that we have, and they're all assigned to different buildings throughout the district. And this slide itself just shows you the wide variety of services that we provide to staff and stakeholders depending on their needs. And we do really strive to ensure that we cater to their needs and differentiate what we do to really make sure that the opportunities in classes and outside of the classes are equitable and creative and collaborative. And so this year, the 3 that we've really been harnessing or focusing on the most are the collaborative, the train, and the co-teaching model, based on the overarching theme of really capitalizing on what has been done and what could be done, taking things to the next level. As we look in different classes and as we look in different buildings, when we think about what good instructional technology entails, it really is a 2-tier process. And what this slide entails is just the idea that if a teacher and staff member is doing it to the best abilities in that moment for that lesson, granted we all have off days, or they're continuously striving to ensure that they are enhancing their lessons, it's integrated into the classroom to enhance the experience for the kids, and it supports curriculum goals, as I mentioned before. And so when the specialists are doing their walkthroughs, when building admin and other specialists are doing their walkthroughs, these are the things that they're looking for to make sure to give purposeful feedback to help them see areas where they can grow and, again, continue to use that tech to enhance the experience for the kids. Go back up. Sorry, everyone. This video here is going to showcase the different ways that staff and students are using instructional tech in the district. And so this is more so kind of like the how and the what of instructional tech for the district so far. So the next few slides talk more specifically about our LMS Canvas and just what's been going on with that, but also again capitalizing on things that have been happening and reflecting upon how it's being used within the district itself, which I think is very important. And so the first thing here is this new help button feature, which is a part of the templates that all the different staff are using within their classes. And what this is this is a collaboration between the building admin and the instructional technology specialists in the building to provide specific information to students and also parents who are there as observers in their students' courses for the building and also for the district. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop for anything that students and parents need to know of like what's going on within the district and their building. The next three charts, I know there's a lot going on there, but it was important for me to show this to you because I really wanted you to focus in on the fact, first off, that in February 2019, there were 51 active courses, and now in December 2021, we have 1,180 active courses. And it's not just teachers who are using it, it's the specialists, it's the TAs, it's co-teachers, so it's expanded to where we can utilize these different features of Canvas in a variety of ways to make sure that kind of like behind the veil, as I always reference when I'm having conversations for the students, to prepare things for them when they're actually in person. And so if you notice on this slide and the next three, what's really interesting, I think something that's really, really cool is the fact that these lines really haven't gone down. When you compare March of 2020 Canvas use to December, I believe the last one is actually January 2022, it's only gone down by an average of maybe 4 to 5%, which is actually huge. We went from a time when all staff, all students, all parents were using Canvas 24/7 because they're at home, to a point where now they're back in class and teachers are finding new ways to utilize Canvas in a way that again enhances their actual classroom lessons and activities to another level, which I think is huge and it's something that we should definitely celebrate. One thing that I did want to point out was that the amount that they did go down, but also the orange one on the chart on the right side, which is the observer piece of this, which are the parents and guardians. It's natural, in my opinion, for the numbers to go down just because the parents aren't sitting with their student in their house going through things with them. And so we are going to be working as a team with the rest of TNL, but also the professional learning department, since instructional tech is part of it, to find ways to enhance opportunities for parents to again be lifted up and come into the fold of how else they can utilize instructional tech besides just Canvas within their households, to ensure that we're kind of hitting them from all angles to ensure their success. And so the next few slides are going to be showcasing that. The last part of Canvas is something that I'm asking for the board to review and approve today is the extension of Canvas Studio Pilot, which is a multimedia extension for Canvas. And this allows another level of communication and feedback and kind of inquiry through Canvas itself, which I think is a really cool extension. And as I mentioned at the Finance Committee itself, there's been an increase even in the last 2 weeks. It's listed there on the slide itself as 279 teachers. It's gone up to 283 within 2 weeks. And then the students went from 2,678 to 2,711. So it's continuously increasing, and it's only a free pilot right now. And then the last piece of Canvas is, again, ensuring that everyone is brought up, come to the fold, having purposeful conversations about how the instructional tech of the LMS is being used. We're offering, as a professional learning department, various refreshers and trainings for building leadership throughout the district. And it's not just building admin, it's also specialists and anyone else who has kind of a leadership role in the district to ensure that when they are talking with staff, when they are in classes, interacting with students, they know exactly what they're looking at and can help guide them with whatever they need. This slide here, the PD, is strictly to show you once again that we are, the team is working tirelessly to ensure that whatever we offer to staff and students is catered to their needs, just because every building, every classroom, every student, every style of teaching is different throughout the district. And so it's important for us to consistently take in feedback and then provide the PD, the coaching opportunities and the one-on-one opportunities with the stakeholders to ensure that we are, again, continuously lifting them up. So with this, to hit another angle of this is we've partnered up with the communication department and have Heather Bennett and her department to hit the kids kind of where they honestly live the most, social media. And so what we've been doing is every Tuesday we've been releasing various reminders on the district's social media platforms to help them remember, just because, you know, when they leave the building, they often have that random amnesia and forget what they even did for the day. When you ask them what they did, they usually say nothing. So it's to help them see it and visually hear things that will help them remember to prepare, or how to prepare for school. And then we took this to the next level with parents, where we now start offering tips and tricks and advice of how they can start utilizing the iPad with their student at home to help them understand what's going on. So that way there's, again, no skip a beat with understanding what's happening. And this last video of the presentation is again to perpetuate the idea of solidifying, or excuse me, to strengthening and helping ensure that we have a good partnership with parents and everyone in the community by purposely having videos be directed toward various aspects of the district to ensure that when they have conversations with staff about their student and how they're doing in the classes, they can utilize the appropriate terminology. They know exactly how the assessment timelines and the delivery of the instruction is actually taking place within the classes. And so this was created with our family and district ITS, and Liz Dampf, she is the main star of this video.
Here at Round Lake, we believe in mastery learning. Basically, mastery learning says that people learn at different paces and therefore need different amounts of time to learn. Good instruction here means three things. Firstly, describing what mastery of a skill looks like. Secondly, assessing students' current mastery levels. And thirdly, providing appropriate correctives, enrichments, and next steps based on those levels. In other words, our teachers are always adjusting their instruction to suit students' learning. We're determined that our students learn the required skills, and we know this means we have to be focused in our measurements and flexible in our methods. One natural partner to mastery learning is competency-based education, or CBE. Districts that practice CBE lay out a progression of competencies, skills, understandings, and move students along a path once they master a particular competency. What this means in practice is that skill acquisition is more important than age. You might have a math class with 3 different ages of students, but all students have the same skill level. As we build up our CBE program, we will be incorporating not only academic competencies, but those needed for success in the workforce. We've partnered with local businesses, trade programs, as well as institutions of higher learning to identify both general and job-specific skills needed for success after high school. Competency-based education and mastery learning together make up the basis of what we do in Round Lake. We report grades based around mastery of skills, not work completion, not attendance, not effort, mastery of skills. We identify competencies that serve students not just in college, but in various work settings and all manner of life beyond K-12 education. We want students to be prepared for whatever life they choose, and we want to give them the experience of tracking their own progress, incorporating feedback from teachers, and trying new ways to learn. Thanks for considering Round Lake area schools.
And it is important to note also that anything that we do release on social media platforms or to parents as we build out this archive of parent partnership videos are translated into Spanish to cover all facets of the community. So the last slide, my finger gets a little hard holding this down for so long. So the last slide is just moving forward, like what's next? And so ultimately what's next for instructional tech is to keep doing what we're doing with the iPad integration, keep helping teachers and other staff members understand how to better utilize the instructional tech in the classes to enhance the experience for kids, but more importantly to start having needs assessments to see where we do have some pockets of improvement for the kids with their skills and figuring out ways to better implement them more strategically in the classes, so that way then they continuously build upon what they're learning to, again, when they leave the district, they're ready to go for whatever they want to go into to pursue their passions after high school. And then part of this also is just providing opportunities for parents and guardians to, again, come into the fold, work with their kid alongside their students to understand how they're using it in the class. Any questions?
I do. I actually have a couple questions. Going back to your, like one of the earlier slides, the instructional tech standards and framework, the digital citizenship. The question is, this was really more in the forefront as we moved to the iPads, and now it's, become like an appendage for all of us. We just take it for granted. What are we doing to reiterate digital citizenships to our students and then forwarding that on to our families? I mean, I know our devices are locked down, but still, what are we?
It's mainly done through modeling for the kids and how to properly use them in classes and in communication and collaboration. And as far as the at home, the first steps of this has been the Tech Tuesdays with sharing on information of how the parents, in videos also, of how parents can realize that it's a district device. Like they have the right to take it away like any other object in the household, and to also know how to navigate it, to have lookouts or look-fors of anything that may be misbehavior or things they should be doing as far as putting their information out on the internet. So it is building out the ability for them to get those resources, but also moving forward, working with the tech department to have the parents know how to call the buildings to ask questions. And then we're also working on providing resources to secretaries in all the buildings. So that way when, kind of like a standard operating procedure, so when a parent does call, they then have kind of a flow chart of what they can do to help them or of where to go and ask questions.
Okay, so that's so that leads me into my next question. So you mentioned about the Tech Tuesdays and sharing with parents how and who to communicate with when they need assistance. On our website, do we have like a tech area so that our parents can go to? I think it's great that we share it on all our social media platforms, but I think it should also be linked and should be housed and available to our families on our website as well.
Jumping in, I'm pressing the button. We do. So we are putting the parent partnership videos and the resources in the parent portal of the district website.
So like as a parent, I go onto our district website. I see, athletic, fine arts, COVID, our district school board, employment, staff directory, our schools. Do we or shouldn't we maybe have one for tech as a parent? Because, my son or daughter is having issues with his or her iPad. I know you're sharing these tips on social media, but as a parent, it'd be nice to come on here and go, oh, tech. I can click on tech, and then I see tech, what you're sharing for tech to the social media. Too many T's. And then maybe those hotline numbers, as you're saying, the people in the building are sharing with parents. But, I get home at 6 o'clock. There's nobody in the building that I can call or reach out to.
That's a great point. And I would say that that's something that we definitely need to start making a more robust, resource for parents.
Donnie, you could just work with Heather, who oversees the website construction. You have the information, you have the content. Let Ms. Bennett just assist you in terms of kind of locating it so that it's easy to identify. So I know Ms. Bennett heard that, so she'll probably be following up with you this week.
For sure. And I will say, too, that we have been, the tech department and communication department and ITS have been working on a one-pager that's going to be sent out to families that will have information just like that. But I agree that having it somewhere on a consistent place on the district website for them to go would be great.
A more stagnant platform. I mean, social media is great, but I don't want to have to go back to Facebook or Twitter or Instagram and scroll back to I remember seeing your tip, but I don't remember where it was. But if I can go to our website, and as a parent, okay, easier than scrolling through the post.
Makes sense. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And
that was the cleanest explanation I've seen for mastery learning and competency based. And I'm like, oh, finally, I understand it. But I'm wondering how many other parents are in that similar situation. I think about the Welcome Center. I think about registration. I think about all those ways that families enter in, whether it's this, in a new year, or enter in terms of a new district, or just how to get their head around, how do I understand this so I know how to support my children. Both that and the going through the camera. I saw the slide about how, really specific about how to support the technology for your student. Love it. It's really, really good stuff. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Actually, one more. That one resource, the help button, is that for every school, including transitions?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
When we have the teachers develop and create their actual Canvas courses, it is part of the template that they import. So it's right there, ready to go.
And that's in Canvas. But okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, next up is Dr. Rowling with what in the world is Dr. Rowling throwing away this month?
Some pretty exciting stuff this month. I believe we have a high jump pit and some library books. Any questions?
Thank you very much. All right, next up is strategic plan. I know we all got a chance to look at it, so any questions, anything you want to call out?
Just a gentle reminder for the board that by the end of the school year, probably June-ish, we'll be bringing a comprehensive summary of strategic planning and progress and student achievement and some of our greatness indicators. So I know it's fairly easy. Appreciate the team is updating this, but just want to reiterate, we'll be doing a full-blown presentation to give you an opportunity to maybe do a deeper dive. So,
Board, any questions in regards to the current state of the strategic plan? Hearing none, next up is the FOIA report requests that was inside the package. Anybody have any questions in regards to what we saw there? Seeing none on that, next up is contracts under 1,000.
I just wanted to point out the contracts under 1,000. It's the Loomly contract. It was brought to finance. It is a monthly subscription. It is just a short term right now. It's I know the communications committee have talked about our posts on social media, trying to keep it consistent, so it's on all platforms. And we know we haven't always seen that. That contract for Loomly is to assist with. If I'm in the building, I post to Facebook, it goes across all the platforms that we support.
And is that something to, assuming that this 4-month subscription runs well, that they'll be looking to come back to finance for like an annual at some point?
Yes, it's just a short term right now. As you know, in the finance department, we try to keep our contracts all in the same cycle. So this gives them that interim. Until then, they can try it out, see if it works. One of the things Finance Committee did ask in reviewing the contract is, most of our posts and people are doing it at their laptop in the building. However, our athletics department, they do it at the games, as we recognize some of our athletes, they're doing it at the event. So there is an app so that if I'm the wrestling coach or whoever is posting for that, it'll go across all those platforms as well.
All right, hearing no other questions on the contracts under 1,000. Next up is public comment. As always, members of the public may participate in public comment during regular board meetings by attending in person and staying most of the time, but I guess not this time, or by submitting an electronic public comment form. Please note that speakers are limited to 3 minutes. A link to the electronic public comment form is found in the documentation, and electronic public comments will be accepted up until the time the board reaches the public comment section of the meeting, which is now. So my first question is, do we have any electronic public comments? Do, 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 do. All right, hearing no electronic public comments, I'll look out into the vast audience and ask if we have any public comment. Hello. Hearing no public comment at all, then we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Board President Francisco and Board of Education. On Friday, February 25th, the Center for Disease Control made changes to their guidance related to community risk levels and the removal of mask requirements on school buses. CDC now determine risk levels within communities using 3 metrics. 1, new COVID-19 cases. 2, new COVID-19 hospitalization admissions. And 3, % of staffed inpatient hospital beds for the past 7 days. Risk levels are labeled low, medium, and high. At this point in time, Lake County, Illinois is determined to be a low risk level. Additionally, today the IHSA announced that it will no longer provide guidance related to COVID-19 and is deferring to local decision making, is deferring decision making to local authorities. My apologies. Given these changes, Round Lake District 116 will continue with the recommended, not required masking status across the district while indoors and on school buses. If there is a need to move into a situational universal masking status, families and staff will be notified. So essentially, the mask status is consistent across all areas of the district unless otherwise noted. That concludes the superintendent report.
Thank you, Dr. Mendoza. Any questions for Dr. Mendoza? Hearing none, we will now move to committee reports, and there was a long, good finance committee meeting today, so take it away.
Yes, thank you, and our apologies for running over in the late start to the regular school board meeting. Thank you for your patience. Yes, we did a lengthy finance committee meeting. As you heard from Dr. Kivens and Tammy, the debt profile review and forward refunding placement recommendation that they will be coming forward with on the 14th. Again, it's just to reiterate to the board, it's just parameters. You are not committing wholeheartedly to that recommendation. It's just so that Dr. Kivens, as she continues to do, is doing her due diligence, and we're looking at opportunities to refund our debt and keep our books healthy. So thank you, Dr. Kivens. And I just wanted to circle back, just regarding, I know the credit rating or credit report was brought up. Is if we do the public offering or private placement, whether they would pull our credit. Public offering, they would. Private placement, they would not. And then with that, when Dr. Kivens came, I did have a conversation with her in doing a school board finance 101 for our board. But however, as you know, we went into a pandemic right when she came. Not that it, not you, Dr. Kivens, but so we would still like to offer that to the board to go over school finance specifically for our district. I know the Tri-I offers that, and it's really high level and overarching, but we'd like to speak more specifically to our district. So with board's agreement, I could arrange with Dr. Kivens a special meeting for that. It sounds like a yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I definitely see consensus.
All right. Thank you. Because as you see, we're looking into district refunding or looking into our debt. So I will talk to Dr. Kivens and we'll get that on the books. Question.
Staff must present all the material.
I'll let them work that out. I'll let them work that out. But I think they've heard your recommendation. Next, and it will be on the agenda later this evening, is the recommendation for approval of the 1.0 FTE construction manager. I know this has been a topic before the board previously. It is supported by the Finance Committee. And again, I know it's coming forward later. It is a construction manager that will have a salary of $102,000 plus benefits of $28,233.48. And of course, this would be for fiscal year 2023 budget assumptions, and the facility supervisor will not be filled. That was also brought forward previously, because of course we want to have a balanced budget. It also brings me to, I know again we've mentioned this before, Finance and Facilities Committee wants to do an RFP for architects, go back out to get, instead of one architect of record for the district, have multiple. Each architect has their own niche that they are good in, and being a unit district, and we feel it's best if the district has not one but multiple. So again, we are arranging for the Finance Facilities Committee with the board president so that we can vet those architects. And you know, with that, those architects, we've learned, and I'm sure as you have as well with multiple projects we've had within the district, it really behooves the district to have a construction manager that is solely their interest is ours and not the managing architect. So again, that is our recommendation. Next is talent space contract. This is a virtual career platform. You know, obviously in the world we are today, everything's moved more virtual. Our human resources does a great job of visiting career fairs at our you know, colleges and universities around. This would be specific, a virtual career fair for Round Lake, that they could use this platform for not only external candidates but internal as well. So this would be within the walls of RLHS. This is a contract for, it's one job virtual fair, but you can hold it over multiple days, and it's at the cost of $4,000. I think it really will be a good thing for Round Lake, because again, it's not just reaching out to the colleges we're associated with and visit, but really extends our arm into a farther reach, and again within RLHS. So the Finance Committee is in support of that. Also later this evening is the contract for Nancy Kent, is an independent contractor. She served as a hearing officer for us, and that is on or later as well. Next, that will be coming next month, or next board meeting, what that is next month, is the Dave & Buster's contract. This is called the Seniors Award. Some might formally know it as the Decision Day that kids would attend at Dave & Buster's. So they've kind of rebranded it to Senior Awards, knowing not all our children go on to four-year institutions or into college. So I thought that was really good, and really excited to see this come back again for our students. That is at a cost of $4,238.20. And of course, they will follow COVID restrictions as Dave & Buster's informs. Next, we spoke of the purchase of a 2020 Chevy Malibu. This is on the accounts payable report. So when we move into the consent agenda, it's on there. As you know, we offer driver's ed. We had 2 cars that we leased in partnership with Raymond Chevrolet. Those cars were taken back by Raymond Chevrolet. Obviously, the market for used cars is not what it used to be. So we are buying the car that we currently have that is from Raymond Chevrolet into our fleet. Obviously, we need a car for our driver ed students. So again, that is on the accounts payable report. The Finance Committee had asked administration about putting a policy and procedure in place now that we will own the car versus when it was leased, we would take it back to the dealership. Obviously, that won't be the situation anymore. So they'll be bringing that back. middle school department chairs. Dr. Mendoza and Dr. Rowling has spoke to this before earlier as well, so this is on the agenda later this evening. Recommended for approval. One thing that was omitted is the department chair for PE, physical education. It will be K through 12, not just 9 through 12. And then this is the Atlas Rubicon Curriculum Warehouse contract. As you heard earlier, we have Canvas Studio, and there's other places where our teachers pull from the curriculum from. This would be a warehouse as sort is what I call like a GUI system where everything is housed under there. So I, as an educator, I don't have to go to the different platforms we have everything in, especially as elementary, where they teach all areas versus like high school, middle school, certain content. So this would house everything all together. So a one-stop shop for the teacher. It is a total cost for a 39-month period of $67,733.75. Year 1 going for elementary, year 2 and 3 moving on to middle school and high school. And then of course our theater sound system here at the high school. As you know, costs are going up and sourcing material is getting harder. Therefore, we have seen an increase in the equipment prices originally quoted by an increase of 10%, increasing by an amount of almost $19,000. Now we have previously discussed this, and we've said we would be moving forward with putting this into the theater. And we kind of knew when we started this that we would possibly see some cost increase as we continue to move forward. So in discussing with Dr. Kibbens, we can, while it is a substantial increase, we can still support this and we still want to continue to move forward with it. The high school stadium, again, moving as it should. And you will see, again, also on the agenda later today, a contract for TC Furlong. That's the rental agreement for the company who will have the monitors and speakers that we will need for graduation itself this year. That's at a total cost of $7,422. So it is a little slightly higher than we originally had informed previously, and that's because we had to build in a rain date. But let's hope we don't have a rain date. Next is the Loomly subscription, which you heard us talk about under the contracts, under $1,000. And then next we have the district infrastructure E-rate funding update. The One-to-Wonder program utilizing our E-rate is 85% reimbursable. And let me get my numbers. So it's $540,000 will be reimbursable. So I'm going to kind of overlap with some of these with, as we talked about, the district iPad purchase as well. That was the iPad purchase. My apologies. Is $500. This is the emergency connectivity funding. My apologies. This is the iPad purchase with the emergency connectivity funding (ECF). This is the One-to-Wonder. This is where we the grant that we received. It is reimbursable, $440,000. Of course, we have to pay this up front and then get reimbursed. I know Dan and Dr. Kibbens are working, so it should time right that as the invoice is due from Apple, we should get the money back. So they'll keep us abreast on how the timeline actually funnels out. Now the E-rate funding. my apologies. The One to Wonder environment, that is still moving forward. It's 85% reimbursable. It's a $1.1 million. And that's just continuing to move forward. We'll have the RFP for March 14th, next month, meeting, coming forward to us. And then the Canvas Studio subscription, which you again heard earlier in that presentation. We were currently using the pilot program, which was free. The pilot is over, and they're asking for our support, and we do the to continue with that. That's at a cost of $7,124. And then last but not least, our student proposed fees for the 2022-2023 school year. And again, that's later this evening as well. There is a slight increase in some of our fees for band and choir. The base registration fee stays the same. Again, Finance Committee had asked about making sure we get, should that be approved? And of course, the flat fee, that be communicated to the district, as last year our parents did not have to pay the flat fee. So just a reminder of what that cost is to our families, having them not having to pay that last year. We want to make sure we get that communicated to them. And Mr. DeVera, did I miss anything?
Don't think so.
I should have brought some water, but that's it.
Was on the fee structure, I know that we had talked at one point about athletics, if you have a student that is multiple sports, having an overall cap. Did we ever settle on anything along that, or?
Yeah. So we said no, because even if you do multiple, it's still cheaper than even all the other districts. And then when you look at the fees that are proposed in that memo, we are still way below our neighboring districts. So it's going from $45 to $50. So even if you have a multi seasonal athlete like I have had, you're still going to be less than what our neighboring districts pay for one sport.
Thank you.
That concludes finance. Other questions?
Hearing no other questions, we will now move on to approvals.
All right, I need a motion to approve the February 7th, 2021 regular board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Roll call, please.
Mrs. McKinley,
Yes.
Mr. Devera,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Joy,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the consent agenda for the accounts payable report for $1,186,023.26. The previous motions report for $147,386.88. The January 2022 Treasurer's Report, the January 2022 P-Card Report, and the February 28th, 2022 Employment Report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Klingler. Any questions?
I have a quick question. On the check summary on page 56, there was a charge for $439.17 for RTUs. It says TXV for Mammoth. I just want a clarification if anybody knew what that was.
Is that an air conditioning unit?
Yeah.
RTU is an air conditioning unit.
RTU for Round Lake Middle.
I can look it up really quick.
I'm sorry. Typically, when I look through these, I know what they are, but
No, that's definitely an HVAC. I mean,
Yeah, it's an air handling unit.
yeah, if you want, I mean, we can we can get the information to the full board
it's
as
okay. If
part
that's
of the
what it
weekly.
was, that's fine. I just was curious. That was the only thing I didn't know. Okay.
It's an RTU unit. It's air conditioning.
Okay.
But I can get into more detail. Page what?
It was page 56, and it was for $439.17.
Okay,
Sorry to nickel and dime you, I just wanted to know.
no problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Devera,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
And motion carries. Looks like now we're to old business.
Right,
Yeah.
All right, I need a motion to approve the referenced in the memo school board policy proposed changes as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Any questions?
I have a few, actually. Okay. Okay, so I just need clarification on. It's 6.60, and it's actually on. It's on page 81. There's a couple things I have questions on. As far as the sex education, it doesn't, I don't know, I couldn't figure out which one we were defaulting to. Because it gave several options for that, so I needed clarification on that.
Heather, I think you provided an update at the last meeting. Do you remember? I'm not trying to get you to memorize it, but do you remember? Because I think last meeting we provided an explanation on that.
And we may have, and I apologize.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's absolutely okay.
I just need a second to get to that page, sorry.
Take your time. Page 80 and 81. And then while we're going to be on that page as well, it looks like we defaulted to, and I just want to make sure that I'm reading this correctly, no on in grades 9 through 12 a unit of instruction about the process of naturalization. And I just wanted to know why, if that was the case, why we would not do that.
Kurt, do you recall the background on that one?
Let's not guess. So let's write the questions down. We're going to table the approval and then we'll bring it back to the next meeting. So let's make sure that we have all the questions. Do you have those written down?
Yes, I'm good.
And we have explanations, just Dr. Center's not here and she can't explain the sex ed one for sure. So are there any other specific questions? It's not urgent that we pass this evening. I just want to make sure we get the answers to you.
Okay, so I put the motion on the table, so I'll need to motion to retract.
Okay.
I need a motion. I need a motion to retract the motion to approve to I need a motion to rescind the motion to approve the reference school board policy proposed changes to table to the next meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Ms. Lee. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Devera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
And motion carries, and as clarification, the motion that carried was just rescinding the motion.
To table to the next meeting. Bring forward to the next meeting.
I did have one more clarifying question. Juneteenth, June 19th, that's a non-attendance day, correct?
If it's on a weekday, correct.
If it's Saturday, they can stay home. All right, I'm gonna continue on. I need a motion. Let me make sure, hold on. Make sure I'm on. All right, I need a motion to approve the decrease of 4 content area chairs and the high school PE department chair stipend, increase 12 middle school department chair stipends, 3 6 to 12 department chair stipends, and 1 K through 12 department chair stipend.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Ms. Lee. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Joy,
Yes.
Mr. Deborah,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes. And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the Nancy Krent independent contractor agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Joy,
Yes.
Mr. Deborah,
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the rental agreement with TC Furlong Inc. in order to lock in our middle school promotion and high school graduation dates.
So moved.
Second.
I literally have no idea who seconded that one. Okay, we'll go with Mr. Jewett. Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Joy,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mr. Deborah,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the addition of 1.0 FTE construction manager.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Joy,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Deborah,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the extension of the Canvas Studio subscription.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Deborah,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve of the 2022-2023 student fee schedule as laid out in the memorandum.
May I ask, I think it's just discussion, right? Weren't we gonna bring it back to, I could be
Yes, it's
wrong.
not a motion.
Okay, so it's just, we wanted to give you an opportunity to ask questions. We have the team here. I think you did a great job of providing the summary anyway. But Dr. Kibbins is here to answer questions. So our plan would be to bring it back for approval at the next meeting.
Got
Sorry
in
to
a groove.
interrupt you.
No, I appreciate you telling me I got in a groove there.
So
Approvals
just-
for you, approvals for everyone.
Just a quick review. We did research all of our colleagues within the conference, in addition to Waukegan, to see where they were at with their fees. As a reminder to the board and to our community, last year, the base registration fees were funded through ESSER 2. At this point, I'm recommending that we reinstate those base registration fees, the $170, the $125, and the $95 at each level, respectively, to be in alignment with our colleagues, not only in our conference, but also surrounding districts. You also will notice a small increase on the athletics piece, as well as a band and choir at each level of $5. Again, in monitoring what our colleagues are doing in the conference, in addition to other surrounding districts, they do have perhaps an individual cap or a family cap, but that base fee is much higher than we were at. So even if we were to meet that cap, we still would be within alignment of being lower fee end. You'll see a savings of $4 on the ID card replacement. That's because that is what our actual cost is the dollar. And then you also see an increase on the copy of the student transcripts of 15 cents per page to be more in alignment with our colleagues.
I do want to call out the benefit of the decrease in the ID fee. Having worked in this building and having had to work with parents who need payment plans when their kids graduate, I cannot believe how many IDs kids go through. Ms. McGinley, I know you may comment on that. So, but it is the fact that we're able to print our own IDs now. It's just we can do it here, and it's for cost. You know, I always think I feel bad in saying it, but I don't think the incentive to not pay the $5 ever worked. So I know it seems like a small thing, but frankly, I think in the long run, it'll help our families.
Yeah, I did not mention that, and I do want to say thank you to Dr. Kibbins to noting that, you know, we're not trying to make money on these fees, we're trying to sustain the financial health of the district. So to be able to decrease that fee to the dollar and save that $4 as a parent who, you know, got that invoice at the end of the year for $50 for lost fees, of lost IDs, you know, that's appreciative for, you know, to the community and to parents. So, you know, it is a big deal to save that $4 per ID. It should make my son reimburse me or something.
As you look at the fee chart, just to bring to your attention, the AP test is not a new fee to us. It's just newly communicated on the chart. We want to be more and more transparent with our community, so it's not like we're imposing this additional fee if it's applicable to students at the high school level. It's always been there. That's why it's determined by the college board, and we just wanted to be a little clearer to our families. Any questions, conversation? We're hoping to bring this back as our registration process will open in April and then conclude in September.
Hearing no, thank you very much. All right, next up we are to positive occurrences.
Okay, I'll start. So the guard team actually had two competitions that they went to in the last 2 weeks. So they ended up going to the one in Schaumburg, I believe it was. They've kind of run together at this point. They actually placed second and were promoted to a higher class. So that was pretty exciting. There were some nerves going into this competition this weekend, though. The way it was structured is they were against 18 teams and it was the top 9. They actually placed 10 and they were beat out of the 9th place by 0.04 of a point. So that happened, but we were so proud of them. They did so good. There was a lot of nerves happening because they were worried about competing with people that were more advanced, but as they proved, they were right in the pack with everybody else, and they did a really great job and really represented our school district in a beautiful way. I think they're very sweet when they're out there. They're telling people that they did a good job and cheering the other teams and stuff, so I was proud of them. So I just wanted to point that out. I know there's a lot of other cool stuff that happened as well, so I'll let everybody else take a crack, but I just wanted to point that out.
Well, I mean, obviously it was a great celebration today of all the students here in the high school, and congratulations to every one of those students and their families. You know, and again, thank you to the girls basketball team and their parents for, you know, giving us this lovely gift. And, you know, I just wanted to say thank you to them all personally for letting me follow them and document and take pictures of this amazing year that they had.
And I'd be remiss not to point out that we talked about it, but don't let it be glossed over of the significance of placing two female wrestlers in the first ever IHSA state finals. Just even getting them there. Not only the significance of being able to put together a team on the challenges that we had to be able to put together a team, not necessarily having teams to wrestle against for those girls, having to still kind of compete in a co-ed environment, and then them going into their own girls state playoff and them competing at the high level that they did across the whole team, not just the two that qualified for state, but I think it was 4 or 5 that made it to sectional and the whole 9 yards. So again, just a great job there, expanding it and making sure that we're having opportunities for all of our genders. Not hearing anything else, we'll move to future agenda items. I do just want to bring up 2 reminders. Number 1, we will be having a board self-evaluation with IASB. We'll be working on getting a date out and a date and a time for that. So just keep that in the back of your minds. It is that time of year again. Every year, Ms. Lee, for this being your first time around, because that happened right before you came on the board last year. Every spring, we do have a board self-evaluation, which is guided by IASB, by the division's representatives. They come in and they lead the conversation, and it's a great chance for us to be able to make sure we're level setting and guidepost setting.
Mr. Francisco, I don't remember. You guys have a better memory than me. Do we do that every year or every other year?
It's every
it might
other
be
year. It's every other.
Yeah, you're right. It might be every other. Sorry, thank you. And then also, it's on your calendars, but just a reminder, it's coming up really fast. Wednesday, March 9th, 6 p.m. at the Doubletree by Hilton over in Libertyville Mundelein is the Lake Division Spring Dinner. So this is our first spring back after the COVID fiasco. The good news is that we are back. We're in person. It will be at the Doubletree, which is where we had it in the fall, where we normally have it in the fall. We're still not back to hosting them in the schools quite yet. Maybe next year. But just as a reminder, Wednesday, March 9th at 6 p.m. And anybody have anything else for future agenda items? All right, hearing none, we will move away from future agenda items and go to an approval of closed session minutes from the prior meeting.
All right, I need a motion to approve the release of previously unreleased closed session meeting minutes from January 2020 through July 2020.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Devera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the destruction of closed session audio recordings for July 2020 and the prior.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Devera,
Yes.
Motion carries.
Need a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes of January 24th, 2022 regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Ms. Lee. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Devera,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler.
Yes.
And motion carries. All right, next up, we need a motion to convene in closed session. And give me just a second. Now, for those of us watching on TV, it'll be a brief pause and then we will come back to close out in open session. But I need a motion to convene in closed session as permitted by statute 5 ILCS 120/2 for the purpose of discussing the following: employment matters, 5 ILCS 120/2 C2, and closed meeting minutes, 5 ILCS 120/2 C4.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Devera,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Miss Lee.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries, so we will now convene in closed session. Again, we will be coming back after closed session. It should be a relatively short closed session. We will reconvene in open session and complete the rest of the evening. So thank you very much, and we look forward to talking with you again here very soon. All right, we are back in open session. Thank you for that. And next up, we have action resulting from closed session.
I need a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of a notice of remedial warning.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Devere,
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes of the February 7th, 2022 regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Miss Lee. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley,
Yes.
Mr. Devere,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco.
Yes. And motion carries. And that brings us to an adjournment. We are adjourned at 9:46 p.m. Thank you very much and have a great evening.